When my daughter-in-law, Chloe, told me I was no longer welcome in their home, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply smiled. It was a small, sad smile, one that held a lifetime of memories she knew nothing about. She thought she was pushing out a lonely, old woman. She had no idea she was closing the door on the very person who had built the foundation of the life she now enjoyed. It happened in their shiny, new kitchen. The one with the marble countertops I was always afraid to scratch. She was holding a glass of water, her posture stiff, her eyes avoiding mine. "It's just, the children need more space, Eleanor," she said. "And, well, we need our privacy." The words were polite, wrapped in a fake concern that did little to hide their true meaning. I was an inconvenience. A piece of old furniture that no longer fit the modern decor of their lives. I looked at her, this young, beautiful woman my son loved. I saw the determination in her jaw, the finality in her gaze. And in that moment, I didn't see the stranger she had become. I saw the ghost of another woman, from a long, long time ago. A woman who also thought she knew everything about me. My own mother-in-law. So, I smiled. It confused her. I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. She expected tears. She expected a fight. She didn't expect the quiet acceptance, the almost peaceful look on my face. Because she didn't know that her rejection felt familiar. It was a path I had walked before. And I knew that at the end of this painful road, there was a truth waiting for me. A truth stored in a dusty, old box, tucked away in the darkness of my own attic. To understand that smile, you have to go back. Back to the beginning. My name is Eleanor. For 68 years, that's who I've been. A wife, a mother, and now, a widow. For the last 5 years, my world has been quiet. It's the silence that comes after a great storm of love and life has passed. My husband, Arthur, was the love of my life. We met when I was just 18. He had a smile that could melt winter. He was a builder, not with blueprints, but with his hands. He could fix anything. A leaky faucet, a broken heart, a future that seemed uncertain. He built our home, nail by nail, dream by dream. We didn't have much money, but we had an abundance of happiness. Our house was always filled with noise. The noise of our son, Michael, playing on the floor. The noise of laughter from friends who would stop by. The noise of a life being lived, fully and completely. Then, 5 years ago, the noise stopped. Arthur grew quiet, and then he was gone. A quiet heart attack in his sleep. He left a silence so deep, I thought it would swallow me whole. The house, once so full of warmth, felt large and empty. Every corner whispered his name. His favorite chair by the window. The garden he tended with so much care. The small workshop in the garage, frozen in time. My son, Michael, was my anchor in that storm. He was a young man then, just starting his career in the city. He would drive for hours every weekend to check on me. He'd mow the lawn, fix the things Arthur used to fix, and sit with me at the old kitchen table, drinking tea. We didn't always talk. Sometimes, we just sat in our shared grief, finding comfort in the silence between us. Then, he met Chloe. Chloe was like a burst of color in a black and white movie. She was vibrant, ambitious, and full of ideas. She came from a different world. A world of business meetings, designer clothes, and fast-paced living. I saw the way Michael looked at her. His eyes lit up. His grief seemed to lift. For that, I will always be grateful to her. She brought my son back to life. Their wedding was beautiful. A large, elegant affair. I sat in the front row, wearing a simple lavender dress. Arthur's favorite color. I felt his absence like a physical weight, but I smiled for Michael. I smiled for his new beginning. When my grandson, Liam, was born, my heart learned a new kind of love. It was a softer, gentler love. When they brought him to the house for the first time, I held him in my arms, in the very rocking chair where I had rocked Michael. The circle of life felt so real, so profound in that moment. I whispered a promise to him. A promise to be the kind of grandmother I never had. And then, my granddaughter, Lily, arrived. She had Arthur's eyes. The same deep, kind blue. My world, which had shrunk after my husband's death, began to expand again. It was filled with the sound of childish laughter, with sticky little fingers, and with the pure, uncomplicated joy of being a nana. They started asking me to visit their new home in the city more often. "The kids miss you, Mom," Michael would say. And I would go. I'd pack my small suitcase and take the train into their world. A world of sleek, modern furniture that wasn't meant for lounging. A world of silent, efficient appliances. A world where everything was new, and nothing had a history. At first, it was wonderful. I would spend my days with Liam and Lily. We would read books, draw pictures, and bake cookies in their big, shiny kitchen. I felt useful. I felt loved. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. The atmosphere shifted. The warmth started to cool. I was no longer just Nana. I was becoming a guest. A guest who didn't quite know the rules of the house. It started with small things. Little comments that were like paper cuts. So small, you barely felt them at first. But after a while, they started to sting. I was setting the table for dinner one night. I was placing the forks on the right, the way my mother had taught me. Chloe watched me for a moment, then gently took the forks from my hand. "We actually set them on the left here, Eleanor," she said with a light laugh. "It's more modern." She rearranged the place settings, her movements quick and sure. I just stood there, my hands feeling empty and clumsy. Another time, I was telling Lily a bedtime story. A silly, made-up story about a talking squirrel. She was giggling, her eyes wide. Chloe came in, kissed Lily goodnight, and then said to me, "We're trying to stick to more educational books before bed, Eleanor. It helps with vocabulary development." She replaced my silly squirrel with a book about the solar system. Lily's face fell, just for a second. My heart did, too. I tried to help with the cooking. I made a simple stew, a recipe Arthur had always loved. It was filled with memories and comfort. Michael took one bite and smiled. "Tastes like childhood, Mom." But Chloe just pushed the food around her plate. "It's lovely, Eleanor," she said. "But we're trying to eat less red meat. For our health, you know?" The next night, a nutritionist-approved meal was delivered to the door. It was colorful and perfectly portioned. It had no soul. The biggest change was with the children. My time with them became scheduled, supervised. I wasn't allowed to give them sweets. I wasn't to let them watch any television. Every activity had to be enriching. Our baking sessions were replaced with structured music classes. Our lazy afternoons drawing were swapped for Mandarin lessons for toddlers. I felt like I was losing them. I was being edited out of their story, replaced by a more productive, modern narrative. I began to feel like a ghost in their home. I tiptoed around, afraid to leave a trace. I made my bed perfectly. I washed my cup immediately after using it. I tried to make myself small, to take up as little space as possible. The house was beautiful, but it was not a home. It was a showroom. And I was an outdated display. One afternoon, I overheard Chloe talking on the phone to her friend. I wasn't eavesdropping, the house was just so quiet, and her voice carried from the home office. "I know, it's so stressful," she was saying. "She means well, but she's just from a different time. Her methods are so old-fashioned. I have to reteach the kids everything after she leaves. And Michael is no help, he just wants to keep the peace." I stood frozen in the hallway, a hot flush creeping up my neck. Her methods. I thought of the methods I had used to raise Michael. Methods of love, of patience, of cuddles and storybooks. He had turned out pretty well, I thought. He was kind, he was responsible, he was a good man. Was that not enough anymore? The worst part was Michael. My son, my little boy. He saw what was happening. I know he did. I'd catch his eye after one of Chloe's gentle corrections. He would give me a small, apologetic shrug. A look that said, "I'm sorry, Mom, but it's easier this way." He was choosing peace with his wife over standing up for his mother. And each time he did, a little piece of my heart broke. The anchor I had relied on was drifting away. The distance between us grew. Our conversations became superficial. We talked about the weather, the news, anything but the growing chasm in our family. I stopped offering advice. I stopped sharing stories. I just listened and nodded. I became the person they thought I was. Quiet. Old. Unassuming. Then came the day of the school play. Liam had a speaking part. He was a talking tree. He was so excited. He had called me himself, his little voice bursting with pride. "You'll come, won't you, Nana? You have to see me." I wouldn't miss it for the world, my love, I had told him. The day before the play, Chloe called. "Eleanor, just to let you know, we've managed to get a front row seat for you. But it might be best if you, well, perhaps don't make a big fuss afterwards. Liam gets overstimulated easily. We'll just take him straight home for a calm-down period. Don't make a big fuss. Don't hug my grandson too tightly. Don't show too much emotion." I felt like I was being given a set of instructions for how to be a grandmother. A list of rules that sucked all the spontaneity and joy out of the relationship. I went to the play. Liam was wonderful. He stood on that stage, a little nervous, but he said his line perfectly. My heart swelled with so much pride I thought it would burst. When the play ended, I walked up to him, a huge smile on my face. I opened my arms. He looked at Chloe first. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. Liam then gave me a quick, formal hug. "Hello, Nana. Thank you for coming." I felt the smile freeze on my face. "You were magnificent, Liam," I whispered, my voice thick. "We have to go now," Chloe said, steering him away. Time for his quiet time. I stood there in the crowded school hall, surrounded by other grandparents smothering their grandchildren with kisses and praise. I felt utterly and completely alone. The smile I had given Chloe in the kitchen was born in that moment. The realization that I was fighting a battle I could not win. A battle for a love that was being managed and controlled. The turning point, the moment everything shattered, was a Tuesday. It was an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day that should be forgotten by Wednesday. I was at their house, watching Lily while Chloe ran errands. We were in the living room, building a magnificent castle out of wooden blocks. Lily was chattering away, telling me a long, complicated story about the princess who lived in the castle. It was pure, joyful chaos. Chloe came home, her arms full of shopping bags. She looked tired. She took in the scene, the blocks scattered all over the expensive rug, the cushions we'd used to make mountains, the general mess of our imagination. Her face tightened. Lily, you know the rules. Toys stay in the play zone. But Nana and I are building a kingdom. Lily protested. The kingdom is now over, Chloe said, her voice crisp. Start cleaning up. Now. Lily's bottom lip trembled. I put a hand on her back. It's okay, sweetheart. We had our fun. Let's clean up together. It'll be quick. I started to gather the blocks, trying to make a game of it. Chloe watched us for a moment, then she walked over to the bookshelf. She picked up a small, porcelain figurine of a ballerina. It was a gift from Michael for their first anniversary. It was delicate, expensive. Eleanor, she said, her voice dangerously calm. Did you dust in here today? I looked up. I did, yes. This morning. She held up the figurine. There was a hairline crack running down the ballerina's leg. It was so fine, you could barely see it. This was not cracked yesterday. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and cold. I stood up slowly, my knees aching. Chloe, I didn't touch it. I was very careful. It's just, this was very special to me, she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. These things, they have sentimental value. They can't be replaced. She looked directly at me. Perhaps it's better if you don't handle the more delicate items anymore. That was it. The final paper cut. The one that cut right to the bone. It wasn't about the figurine. It was about my care. My presence. My value. In her eyes, I was a clumsy old woman who broke precious things. I didn't say a word. I just looked at my son's wife, and I saw the culmination of all the little slights, all the corrections, all the managed hugs and supervised visits. I saw a future of being tolerated, not welcomed. Of being a liability, not a treasure. Just then, Michael came home from work. He sensed the tension immediately. What's going on? Chloe held up the figurine. My ballerina is cracked. Eleanor was dusting. Michael looked from Chloe to me. His face was a mask of weariness. He didn't want this drama. He just wanted a quiet evening. Mom, you have to be more careful, he said, his voice soft but firm. That piece meant a lot to Chloe. In that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't a loud break. It was a quiet, final snap. The last thread of hope that my son would see me, would defend me, simply vanished. I looked at him, my only child, and I felt a sorrow so deep it had no bottom. I see, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I turned and walked out of the room. I went to the guest room, my room, and I closed the door. I didn't pack. I just sat on the edge of the bed, looking out the window at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the dusk. I thought of Arthur. I thought of the home we built. I thought of the promises we made. I must have sat there for an hour. There was a soft knock on the door. It was Chloe. She didn't come in. She stood in the hallway. "Eleanor," she began. "I think we need to talk about the living situation." And that's when she said it. The words that brought me full circle to my own past. The children are getting older. They need their own space. We were thinking, Liam could really use this room as a proper study. And we need our privacy as a family. It's becoming clear that having you here so often, it's just not working anymore. She was asking me to leave. Not just for the day, but for good. I stood up and opened the door. I looked at her. I thought of my mother-in-law, Margaret. A stern, cold woman who never thought I was good enough for her son. She thought I was too simple, too plain, too poor. She never knew my secret. The life I had before Arthur. The person I was before I became Eleanor, the wife and mother. And that's when I smiled. "Of course, Chloe," I said, my voice calm and steady. "I understand completely. I'll arrange for a taxi first thing in the morning." The confusion on her face was exactly what I expected. She had braced for a fight. She had prepared for tears and guilt. She was not prepared for peaceful surrender. "Oh, well, good," she stammered. "I'm glad you understand." "Oh, I do," I said. "More than you could possibly know." I didn't sleep that night. I listened to the sounds of their house, the house I would never truly be part of. I heard Michael and Chloe talking in low tones. I heard the soft hum of the refrigerator. I heard my own heart beating, steady and sure. I was not broken. I was being released. The next morning, I called a taxi. Michael looked miserable. "Mom, we're not, you're always welcome to visit." "It's okay, Michael," I said, patting his arm. "It's time for me to go home." I hugged the children. I held them tightly, breathing in their scent, memorizing the feel of their small arms around my neck. I didn't know when I would see them again. "Be good for your mom and dad," I whispered. Then I got in the taxi and I left. I didn't look back. I looked forward. I was going home. Not to an empty house, but to myself. To the truth I had left behind in a box, in an attic, a lifetime ago. The silence of my own house welcomed me like an old friend. It wasn't the cold, judgmental silence of my son's home. This silence was peaceful. It was filled with memories, but they were my memories. Good and bad, they all belonged here. For a few days, I did nothing. I sat in Arthur's chair. I worked in the garden. I let the quiet heal me. The pain of being pushed away was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it was mixed with a strange sense of anticipation. Finally, on a rainy afternoon, I knew it was time. I went to the garage and pulled down the folding attic stairs. The air that drifted down was thick with dust and time. I climbed up, my flashlight cutting a beam through the darkness. There it was, tucked under the eaves, behind the Christmas decorations and Michael's old university boxes. A simple, wooden crate, darkened with age. My name was stenciled on the side in faded white paint. Not Eleanor. My other name. The name I hadn't used in over 45 years. I dragged the box to the top of the stairs and then carefully brought it down, one heavy step at a time. I placed it in the middle of the living room floor, right on the worn Persian rug where Michael used to play with his toy cars. I got a screwdriver and pried the lid open. The wood groaned in protest. The smell that came out was of old paper, cedar, and a life long forgotten. On top, wrapped in tissue paper, was a dress. I lifted it out. It was a simple, elegant sheath dress in a brilliant emerald green. The style was classic, timeless. I held it up against me. I could almost feel the ghost of the young woman who used to wear it. Beneath the dress were stacks of sketchbooks. I opened the first one. The pages were filled with fashion designs. Dresses, suits, coats. They were bold, innovative, beautiful. My fingers traced the lines I had drawn with my own hand a lifetime ago. And then, at the very bottom of the crate, was a leather portfolio. I undid the ties with trembling fingers. Inside were press clippings, yellowed and brittle. Headlines from newspapers and magazines. Elena Rose, the prodigy from Paris. At just 22, she's dressing the elite. The secretive designer taking the fashion world by storm. There were photos. Me, much younger, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a confident smile. Me standing next to models, at runway shows, in a studio filled with bolts of luxurious fabric. I was wearing the emerald green dress. Elena Rose. That was me. Before I was Eleanor, the builder's wife, I was Elena Rose, a rising star in the world of haute couture in Paris. I had worked my way up from nothing. I had a gift. I could see a dress in a bolt of cloth. I could draw it, cut it, and sew it into existence. I had a brilliant, demanding career. I had money. I had fame, of a certain kind. I had a life of glamour and deadlines and art. And then, on a trip to London to source fabric, I met Arthur. He was there visiting a cousin. He was so different from anyone I had ever known. He was solid, and kind, and real. He wasn't impressed by my name or my career. He was impressed by my laugh. We fell in love. A whirlwind, impossible love. He asked me to marry him and come back to his small hometown. He asked me to build a life with him. It was the hardest decision I ever had to make. My career was everything I had worked for. But my heart wanted Arthur. It wanted a family. It wanted a home that wasn't a lonely studio apartment in a foreign city. So, I made a choice. I chose love. I walked away from it all. I packed my most precious things into a crate, my favorite dress, my designs, the clippings of my other life, and I sealed it away. I became Eleanor. I learned to bake bread and tend a garden. I never looked back. I never regretted it. Not for a single day. Arthur and Michael were my world. But I had never told anyone. Not Arthur. He knew I had worked in fashion, but he never knew the extent of it. He never knew I was Elena Rose. I wanted a clean break. I wanted to be just his Eleanor. I certainly never told Michael or Chloe. It belonged to a past that felt like a story about someone else. Until now. Sitting on my living room floor, surrounded by the artifacts of Elena Rose, I understood my smile. Chloe thought she was dismissing a simple, old woman. She had no idea that the woman she was so easily casting aside had once walked away from a world of glamour and prestige that Chloe could only dream of. She didn't know that the strength she saw as stubbornness was the same strength that had built a career from scratch. A week after I returned home, there was a knock on my door. It was Michael. He stood on the porch, his shoulders slumped, his face etched with guilt. "Can I come in, Mom?" I nodded and let him in. He looked around the living room. His eyes fell on the open crate, the dress laid out on the sofa, the sketchbook scattered on the coffee table. "What's all this?" he asked, confused. "This," I said softly, "is me, Michael. The part of me you never knew." I handed him a sketchbook. He flipped through it, his eyes widening. He saw the talent, the skill, the clear, professional lines. You drew these?" "I designed them," I said. "A long time ago. My name was Elena Rose." I told him the story. The whole story. About Paris, about the runway shows, about the choice I made. I told him I had never regretted it. That he and his father were my greatest creations. He listened, utterly stunned. When I finished, he had tears in his eyes. All this time. Chloe, she thought, he couldn't finish the sentence. He was realizing the colossal mistake they had made. They had judged a book by its worn, quiet cover, never guessing the epic story written inside. "It doesn't matter what Chloe thought, Michael," I said. "What matters is what you think. I am still your mother. I will always love you. But I will not be made to feel small in my own family. I gave up a great deal for family. I will not apologize for the space I take up in one." He broke down then. He cried like a little boy. He apologized over and over. He said he was weak. He said he was scared of losing the life he had with Chloe. "I know, son," I said, holding him. "I know. But a life built on making your mother feel unwelcome is not much of a life at all." He stayed for hours. We talked more than we had in years. We talked about Arthur. We talked about his childhood. We talked about my childhood, my struggles, my dreams. For the first time, he saw me as a whole person. Not just as Mom, but as Elena. As Eleanor. As me. He didn't ask me to come back. He knew that bridge was burned. But he asked if he and the children could visit. Here. In my home. Where the rules were mine, and the love was unconditional. "Of course," I said. "This will always be your home." As he was leaving, he looked at the emerald green dress. "It's beautiful, Mom. You should wear it sometime." I smiled. A real smile this time. "Maybe I will." That was 6 months ago. Things are different now. Better. Michael and the children visit every weekend. They run into my house with shouts and laughter. Liam and Lily help me in the garden. They bake cookies with me in my old, flour-dusted kitchen. We make a mess. A wonderful, happy mess. There are no rules here about enrichment or quiet time. There is only love. I showed Lily my sketchbooks. Her eyes, Arthur's blue eyes, went wide with wonder. You made these, Nana, she breathed. I taught her how to draw a simple dress. She has a talent for it. We sit at the table for hours, drawing together, two artists separated by 60 years, but connected by a shared passion. Chloe is trying. She comes with them sometimes. She is quieter, more respectful. She sees me differently now. She sees the strength, not the frailty. The history, not the irrelevance. We are not close, and we may never be. But there is a truce. A mutual understanding. The war is over. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I take out the emerald green dress. I don't put it on. It wouldn't fit anymore. But I look at it. It reminds me of the girl I was. The brave, talented, fearless girl who crossed an ocean for love. I thought I had buried her. I thought Eleanor had replaced her. But I was wrong. Elena made Eleanor strong. Her courage was the foundation of my family. Her dreams were the threads I wove into the fabric of my son's life. So, the lesson I learned, the one I want to share with you, is this: never, ever underestimate the quiet person beside you. You do not know the battles they have fought. You do not know the worlds they have conquered, or the dreams they have set aside for love. Their silence is not emptiness. It is often filled with the most profound stories. And to anyone who feels being pushed aside, being made to feel small, remember who you are. Remember the strength you carry inside. Your value does not decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. My story didn't end when my daughter-in-law told me to leave. It simply began a new chapter. A chapter one get to write for myself, surrounded by the love that I built, and the memories of the woman I have always been. If my journey has resonated with you, I would be so grateful if you joined our little community here. Subscribe for more stories about life, family, and the secrets we keep. And if you have a moment, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, what was the moment you realized your own quiet strength? Your stories are what make this space feel like home.